So I'm going to start crackling, applying the paint to crackle over top of my crackle. I picked up some cobblestone and some sand gray. You see how I pick up? I like to use the fan brush because it's kind of, I feel it kind of works almost like a shovel. So I'll put my paint there so it's accessible. And I'm just going to start applying it from the top. Of course, I'm kind of wanting more of my sand gray, not so much of the cobblestone. And I will, crackle goes in whatever direction you apply the paint on top. So I don't have too much crackle in the middle. So for what I want for this piece is a fair bit of paint. I'm going to come to the end and apply as well. In the center, I really didn't crackle, so I'm just going to pick up the two colors of paint and kind of slap and base coat over top of what I've got here. The crackle will start to crackle and appear where I have crackle underneath it. And I want this to look like an old weathered piece that the crackle and the paint has started to come off of it. I'm not so much worried about the outer edges and sides right now. I will do something with those. But I'm going to take, as this is starting to crackle for me, I'm going to take a couple of baby wipes. So I've got some baby wipes, and I might even give it a little boost of drying here. But it's more the top that I want to work on, and the bottom where the paint is quite thick and my crackle is. The crackle underneath stays kind of, I don't know if we could call it slippery, but it'll allow my paint to slide when I use my baby wipe on it. So I want to take a great amount of paint off of my crackle. But if my paint is too wet around it, it's going to smear. You'll see what I'm going to do here, so you'll get the gist of why I want to dry it up a bit. I don't want it to be perfectly dry because then I'm not going to be able to remove the paint off of the crackle. And I really want it more at the edges, that I'm able to adjust this. So I'm doing a little bit of drying. I'm not wanting it to dry completely. So it's kind of a, if you can leave it and just let it set, that would be good. But for our recording purposes, I'm wanting to heat dry this a bit more. So I've got my wipes, and I'm going to come and I'm going to, do you see what's happening? I'm able to remove the paint in kind of almost sheets. I'm still able to leave some crackle, and that's what I want. I'm getting that light out of there. I will be antiquing this, so it's going to get a little darker there as well. But I'm wanting to have a fair bit of that burnt umber from my base coat showing. So you see how I'm able to, and I'll just keep turning it so I get a clean part of my wipe. to get rid of that excess paint part that's there. See how I'm able to remove that? So this gives me a nice look. It's very aged. My paint will look like it has peeled quite a bit. And then coming down my sides, I'll do a little more. I'm going to do a fair bit of this and then come back with some clean wipes. So I'll move it up so that you can see at the bottom again what's happening here. Turn the wipe to get a bit of So you see how the piece is looking really quite nicely aged, more than regular crackle would be. So this is perfect for an old barn piece that our funky chicken is going to go on. So that is how we're going to prep it. And now, again, like I say, I'll take a couple of clean wipes, and then I'm able to take that excess milky paint finish off of there with a clean wipe. Once it's all dry, we're going to antique it. So that will be next. So we're going to get that, like I say, that excess milky look off of there. And cool. See how cool that is. I've mixed blending gel or stain antiquing medium, whichever you've got. That keeps your paint transparent and movable. Okay, so I'm going to take, I've got my fan brush, I'm going to dig in and I'm going to apply this over top of my piece. Just a nice, quick, sloppy coat, that's all we need. Just apply this on. If you get it on heavier than you wanted, or maybe you didn't mix it as you were trying to and you had less gel, and you can't move your paint enough, you just take and have some plain gel on a clean piece of rag or toweling, paper towel, and you go ahead and you can just use that gel and wipe it back off and it'll remove it. So I now take my rag. I've got just a piece of t-shirt material, and I go ahead and wipe back and wipe off my gel. So I'll just kind of refold my rag so that I've got a cleaner area. And I think I'd like it a little lighter than this. So again, this is where I'll show you that I would take a clean piece of rag, some clean gel, fresh gel, and just go in the center. So do you see how much it removes it back, leaves it a little lighter antiquing? I still want that dirty effect. I'm not looking for perfectly clean. And it's okay to come away from the center and wipe it back so it's a little heavier around the outer edges. Yeah, I'm liking that. So it just pushes it back. I'm not trying to make it too bright around my outside edges, but I do want it a little brighter in the middle. I think I could be a little brighter up top here too, where her little faces or head is going to be. Yeah. Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm liking that look. I'm also going to take a little black brown now, and we'll take, now black brown is a mix that we make. It's actually 4 parts bittersweet to 1 part black. We use it all the time. We keep it by the bottle full here. All of our students do. So I'm going to take that black brown. I'm actually going to switch to a foliage brush. A lunar blender, I guess. Yeah, that's what I'll go for. And I'm just going to pick up some of my black brown with that. And I'm just going to come in and scratch some dark. Give it a scrunch here on the palette. I just want to have a little bit of dark scratchies. So you see how it's just, I'm just coming down with a little scratch here and there. More to the outer edges again. Pick some more scrunch, come down to my bottom. Turn your brush to the chisel every now and then. More of the dark. We want that dark to end up looking like it's just layered dark paint from underneath from years of coating paints. I think that looks pretty good. And then the last thing I'd like to do to this is to take some bittersweet and some black brown. I'm just going to mix the two together. Add some water to it with my fan brush so that it's nice and thin. And then I'll take a brush, I test it over here, and I'll just kind of come along and add some speckles. A little more water. Test over there. I want a few speckles throughout, nothing too dramatic. They'll fade in. And always with speckles, if you got a few you didn't want, if you wanted that a little lighter, all you got to do is take a Q-tip. I'll take a Q-tip, say I don't want that great big one there. I just take my Q-tip and I just dab on top of any of the ones you don't want, like so. Don't try to smudge them off with a towel or anything. I should have clean Q-tip there. I must be rationing them here now. But we'll just come in and you can take out any of the big ones. Most of these won't show by the time we put our design on top. But you like to have some speckles, and that just kind of adds to the antique look to it. So if I don't want quite as many as I put on there, I can take a few off. But it's absolutely your choice of what you'd like on there. All right, so that's our prep before we're going to add our design. So I'm going to apply with my #1 script liner. I'm going to apply my straw, just kind of loose, messy, with burnt umber thin down, kind of throughout where my feet are, where I've sketched on my feet. Or transferred, you'll be transferring your pattern. And then I'm going to pick up a bit of thinned cocoa. Back and forth, just kind of and it'll go through the wet burnt umber, so it'll get changed in color again as well. And I'll come through with that, and then I'm going to pick up some thinned burlap. And just kind of swipe through with that. If we feel we need to have any lighter in it later, we might add a little bit more of a highlight, but I don't want to draw too much focus to our straw, just putting a ground underneath where our funky little chicken is standing. Put a bit more brown in there. There, I'm good with that. Just kind of loose, messy, a nice little straw ground. I'm going to shade my feet. And my beak's going to be done the same, but we'll save our beak for later. Nice and soft, just shade along the outer edges. I'm using 1/4 with our raw sienna. And we want to shade along the one side. Of course, you have to let it dry if you want to go down the other side, because you're going to end up wiping everything off. So we'll come down as little toes, basically on that same side. Now this should be okay to come down this side. And you're walking it out nice and far. You want that to creep out. Same thing along his little, we'll call them his little knuckles there. And then we're going to shade along the top and walk it down as well. The feathers will come on top of there after. So I'm going to give it a quick little dry. And then we're coming back with bittersweet. I can see my sketching lines there. I'll just get rid of that pencil. Now I'm going to shade again. You might like to go to a little smaller shader, like a number 4. If you can find such a tool. There we go. So I'm not going to cover all of my first shading. And now I'm with the bittersweet. Nice and soft. There we go. Down there. Same as we did just previously. Come back down the opposite side. I'm grabbing a little of that other shading, but actually I don't mind the way it looks, so I'm okay with that. It is always better to let it dry. And walk that down the top as well. Pardon me. And then after you're done with this, I'm just going to take and I'm going to pick up a little bit of, I'm going to pick it up with the cocoa. I'm going to pick up a little of my almondine and just kind of, I've got a bit of cocoa in there too, so it's not too bright. Just kind of put that along there, and I'll just scratch it with my finger a little bit right away. So that gives us a little bit of a streak of a highlight, but not overpowering. Alrighty. I am going to come back. I meant to do that, a little of the cocoa and a little of my burnt umber, just to put some of the straw, and then again our burlap, just to have a little of the straw kind of overlapping onto our feet so that they're not just completely on top of the straw, they're more in the straw. We're going to take and we're going to use thin down black brown mix, and I'm going to pull her crazy little wispies. I'm using my rake, and whenever I use my rake I always scrunch it on the palette to get it to splay open. So we're going to pull in, and we can pull some more defined little crazy feathers afterwards with our liner. So we go with our black brown first, which is behind, and then I'm going to pick up burnt umber, thin down, and I'll pull in some burnt umber. Now the black brown is in my background, so it is giving me the strength in the back. And then I'm going to pick up thin down burnt sienna. We really want her to have the strength of these colors coming out, but we want that nice dark in the background. So I'll turn and use my brush like so. And then I'm going to come with red spice. And red spice will be one that I will for sure be coming in with my liner and pulling in some fine hair. So we thin down and we pull in with our liner the black brown. So you see the difference that that's going to make. Pulling in defined, and I'll put some little short stubbies because they have crazy wacky hair. I'm not concerned about going where I've drawn my flowers. They'll get put on top after. At least this way there'll be a few coming out from there. And then I'll have some burnt sienna with my liner. They'll tend to show up a little bit more as they dry. And then I'll finish off with my red spice. All right, so there's some of our crazy wacky hair. Once we get our flowers in there, we can decide if we want her to have a little bit crazier than that. But for now, that's good. I want to fill in the feathers that are going to come from behind her eyes. So again, I'm actually going to start with a little of the under the glasses. A little of the black brown, even though, and on this side here, her head's cocked a little bit. So we're not going to have too much of that. I need some more water on my brush. Give it that scrunch. Once I've got the black brown in, I'm going to again go back with my burnt umber, pull in a little of that, again burnt sienna, and I'm not concerned about getting it on my glasses, right? Because they're getting put back on top again. This is just, the whole thing is to make sure that we have it on the, covering the areas we need it to cover. So now I've got my red spice, couldn't think of what it's called here. And I'm just going to pull in a few of the red spice. I've choked out my darker colors on that side. And what I want to do is I want to lighten it now, because it's going to go down to lighter feathers.